Dave Kerr of the Chicago Reader calls it one of the finest film explorations of the end of innocence. Ralph Novak of People magazine says it's an invigorating first-class affair. It manages to make coming of age a witty proposition. And David Sterrett of the Christian Science Monitor says the writer-director shows a very strong filmmaking talent, which might blossom if given material worthy of it. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of risky business.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be?
The Ruined Childhoods Podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters, and welcome to Ruined Childhoods. I'm Dan, and this is John. Hey, John.
Hey, how's it going, Dan?
It's going all right, John. How are things where you are? How are things in Portland?
Things are good in Portland. It's autumn. It's lovely. I just set up a new television for myself. So first thing I did, turned off the motion smoothing. It's very important, people.
Why do they still include it?
And why do they set it as the default?
Yeah.
That's the
about?
Real question.
Who's behind this?
I don't know, but don't forget that our friend Tom Cruise released that video encouraging people, urging them to turn it off.
Folks, in honor of Tom Cruise Month, turn off the motion smoothing.
Yeah, it's TCM on Ruined Childhoods, and we are very, very excited to keep moving. But I've got to, because this episode is coming out in mere hours from when we're recording this, I did think to actually look up a few news bits as they will still be relevant.
Yes.
So it looks like we've got a little bit of movement on a Little Shop of Horrors remake. Your eyes look a little upset.
This is, you have to understand, so little background here. I am a little behind on news. My daughter Chloe, who is in kindergarten, is Star of the Week this week, and that means that I spent much of the weekend preparing things like a picture board and a STEM experiment, and putting together a little STEM experiment that she would actually be able to demonstrate in front of her class. So I did. I managed to find something that I was like, you know what? I think she's got this. So I don't need to go into the details. That's not why anyone is here. But if you want to know how to do a walking rainbow, Google it or email us at ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com. I'd be more than happy to.
A walking rainbow?
A walking rainbow. Yes. Or a walking rainbow.
Oh my God. All right. So you've been behind on the news.
I'm a little behind on the news. I'm looking this up because I love Little Shop of Horrors.
Right. So this is a remake that's kind of been like, people are talking about it, but it's not like big news yet. And the news that came out is that Billy Porter is potentially going to be voicing Audrey 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, there's really not much more news about the Little Shop of Horrors remake.
Well,
this Little Shop of Horrors remake, because as we know, there already is a Little Shop of Horrors remake, and that's the one that people are most familiar with, probably.
Yes. Well, to just go briefly into the history of Little Shop of Horrors, it started as a Roger Corman flick called The Little Shop of Horrors, and featured a cameo by Jack Nicholson, as in a role later played by Bill Murray. So memorably. So The Little Shop of Horrors was adapted as an wacky off-Broadway musical by these two guys, Howard Ashman and Alan Menken, who you may know from Beauty and the Beast, The Little Mermaid, Aladdin. So they developed this kind of like 60s doo-wop style musical that's really funny and really dark. And it was this big off-Broadway hit, was never on Broadway. And then in 1986 was made into a film by Frank Oz using basically the Jim Henson workshop to create Audrey 2. It was voiced by Levi Stubbs of the Four Tops and starred Rick Moranis as Seymour, which it's perfect casting. And for the remake, I see that they're talking about, like, I see Josh Gad being mentioned, which I'm like, I see Ben Platt being mentioned, and I'm like,
Which one is Ben Platt?
so Ben Platt is known as, so he's currently starring in Ryan Murphy's The Politician on Netflix.
Gotcha.
He was in Pitch Perfect. He was actually, I really liked him in the original Pitch Perfect. So I hear that they're mentioning him, and possibly like Chris Evans as the dentist, which Steve Martin was the dentist in the Frank Oz version. And it's just, I mean, we don't have to talk about this. We really don't have to go into it today. We can save it. But
Right.
the more I think about that film, the more I think it just holds up so well and is such a great version of the stage musical. Now, the theatrical release of the film featured a happy ending. Spoiler alert, the stage version does not have a happy ending, I guess, unless you are rooting for the plant.
Right, nor does the original film.
Nor does the original film, nor does Frank Oz's original cut. And, and if you have the I guess it was the 25th anniversary version.
Certainly
like
everybody
Blu-ray.
has that.
Well, okay, so I have this collector's edition of the Blu-ray, and it features the original ending that Frank Oz shot, which is basically where Audrey 2 succeeds in this world domination. So, it is, if you haven't seen it, it's worth your time. It's not a long film at all. It has so many wonderful cameos and performances. Steve Martin as the sadomasochistic dentist, Ellen Greene as Audrey, and I think like it's the role that Ellen Greene is associated with. She did it on stage as well. Christopher Guest pops up for a cameo. John Candy pops up in a cameo. Jim Belushi. I'm trying to remember all of the cameos, and
You're naming all of the cast, just period.
Well, I mean, like Christopher Guest is just kind of like the first one who walks in and is like, I couldn't help but notice that plant in the window. Tell me about it, in his, like, you know, in that Christopher Guest voice. And yeah, I'm trying to remember all the other, like, there are, I think, like, Paul Dooley is his name, has a...
You don't have to keep on naming people in Little Shop of Horrors.
John, I know you're telling me that, but the voices in my head are telling me...
I feel like you're just unstoppable right now, and I just need to, like, pull the emergency brake. We can move on to the next bit.
I have nothing else to say. I'm burnt out on that. Sorry. See, this is what happens when we do news. This is why we record our episodes so far in advance.
All right. I'd be surprised if you have
value.
much to. I'd be surprised if you'd have much to say about this next one. But a trailer was released, I believe, today for Dolittle, the new Dr. Dolittle remake. I haven't watched the trailer, but it's Robert Downey Jr. It takes place in Victorian era.
Robert Downey Jr. in a role that would have been played by Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
10 years
Rodney
ago.
Downey Jr. Field. Yeah,
Downey Jr. Field.
Yeah, so
Or Donnie
Robert Downey Jr. He's done with his commitment for the Marvel movies, so now it's on to other stuff.
To other reboots, remakes. I mean, I guess it's a reboot because it's a property that just is. It's rebooted fairly consistently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I want to say is this the third big screen version?
Yeah, I believe so.
Because the
original was 60s.
Yeah, it was late 60s, and I want to say that was I'm drawing a blank on
then the 90s with Eddie Murphy during that era when he was just in everything. And then
was that 90s or early? Yeah, I guess that was 90s. Yeah, Rex Harrison. That's Rex Harrison. I kept thinking like Richard Harrison. No, it's Rex Harrison, who played Dr. Dolittle in the 1967 film, and then Eddie Murphy.
Yep, and now RDJ. That's what I got for news stuffs. I'm sure there's more out there, but I don't want to spend too much time since I still have to edit this thing tonight and put it out tomorrow morning.
So I won't go far on this tangent, but I do want to say I had the pleasure of going to the movies this weekend.
Did you?
And I saw Joker, and I think because Joker does fall into the realm of, it's kind of like now the character is being rebooted constantly. And I will say, and I walked in with like I don't read reviews before I go see movies, but it was kind of hard to avoid word of mouth on this. And there's everything from winning the Golden Lion at the I believe it won the Golden Lion. Was that the award it won? Venice Film Festival. So
the Golden Gondola.
The Golden Gondola, yes. Venice. So it won that, but it's also gotten it's gotten critics saying that it is like just nihilistic and vapid and empty. Others who are just saying it's really just blah. And then others who are saying it's a revelation and a movie of our times and something that really represents the kind of chaotic times in which we live. So all that said, I kind of went in just kind of like, okay, I just hope I don't end up being like disturbed. I don't want a disturb. I don't want like a Requiem for a Dream night at the movies.
Yeah.
Which is funny because as my wife Alicia and I were driving home, it was one of the movies that came up in our discussion of it, but positively.
Okay. I haven't seen it yet, so.
Right. Oh, all I will say is this. And this is real. I don't need to give anything away about the story or anything. Like, you've seen the trailers, you've seen what Joaquin Phoenix kind of brings to it. You've gotten a taste of it. Now, I saw this movie not much more than 24 hours after completing a day-long course in mental health first aid.
Gotcha.
And pretty much from the beginning, from the time the character of Arthur Fleck, as played by Joaquin Phoenix, is introduced, I really felt like a lot of what I learned during that training and a lot of the symptoms of mental illness came to mind and felt very believable as I watched them on the screen. And I would say not the lack of attention given to mental health and mental illness, because I think mental health and mental illness are sometimes used like, they're used as a scapegoat for shootings, for
right.
people who don't want to blame guns. So it's not like, but there's no serious, there's not enough serious attention given to it. And from hearing about this in this training, like Washington State, kids at the age of 13 can sign themselves out of institutions, facilities. They can sign themselves out of service. They can reject service. And our instructor talked about like her personal experiences with the system and having to send a close family member to a school in Idaho because it was the closest school that fit the needs of this child. So, and seeing that reflected in Joker and in the idea of not only are mental health services very like cursory and perfunctory unless you have the money, they also can be taken away by, by a budget.
Yeah, for sure.
And that people who desperately need, in a way, it's kind of a movie about what happens when someone who desperately needs mental health treatment and proper mental health treatment doesn't get it.
Yeah.
So in viewing it through that lens, I had to say it was an impressive film, and it was a worth I'm
looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah. I don't need to say anything more about that other than to say, just from a person who kind of went in just as likely to find it a vapid exercise in nihilism, I found it to be meaningful, and it definitely resonated with me. So,
I mean, I'm just looking forward to seeing a movie about the Joker where he doesn't battle the Batman, which, as we've seen from Jokers in the past, that can be pretty risky business.
Well, take those old records off the shelf, John.
While you were saying that entire thing, I was like, how do I tie this back to what we're talking about?
Joaquin Phoenix could be cruising his way to an Oscar.
Okay, well, first of all, you're going to hear us talk about Joaquin Phoenix and his early career, I'm sure, very soon, because it's amazing how we haven't gotten to any of his early movies, which
the Leaf Phoenix years.
Era. Yeah. So, Risky Business. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, Risky Business.
On this episode.
1983.
Yeah, that's the year I was born. Just for context, I wasn't aware of this movie when it first came out. Dan, I'm sure you were barely aware of what was going on with this movie.
No, I wasn't. There was, I think, one movie looking at the 1983 kind of box office. There is one movie of which I am aware that year in its release. That is Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Otherwise, otherwise it's I was not aware of much more than that. It was Star Wars and He-Man and nothing else.
So as far as Tom Cruise's career goes, he had been in Taps, he was in The Outsiders. This was pretty much his next big one after that. I think this came out the same year as Losing It.
I'm trying to remember if Losing It was 82. I think Losing It was definitely before this, but I'm not sure. This came out in August 93.
83.
83. Wow.
So just a brief synopsis. Tom Cruise plays Joel, who is a high school senior, we have to imagine, whose parents are, putting a lot of pressure on him to do well in school and be kind of this model human.
Get into Princeton.
Get into Princeton. And they are going away for a few days, and they trust him. His mother is more trusting of him than his father, but they know that he, will use his best judgment and everything will go just fine. And what ends up happening is his friend Miles, played by Curtis Armstrong, encourages him to, step out of his shell a little bit, break the rules and just say, fuck it. And as kind of a pseudo prank, calls and hires a call girl, a sex worker for Joel. Lo and behold, later that night, a sex worker shows up to his door who is transgender, or I don't know exactly where this person falls into, which category they fall into,
it's
but not what he is expecting.
Right. It's kind of your 1983 version of they probably at the time, she's probably credited as transvestite.
Right.
That's probably what they would have used.
But I will say, the actor who played this character, I don't know the name of the actor off the top of my head, but, you know, played it as a very intelligent person who was, a little eye-rolly about the situation, but...
Had a Terry Crews quality.
Yeah, this would be played by Terry Crews if this were coming out now. Or RuPaul. No, maybe too old.
Or Billy Porter. I don't know.
Or Billy Porter. So, essentially gives Joel the number for somebody more his taste from what he would believe would be his taste. So Joel ends up calling up Lana, Rebecca De Mornay, and they have their night together, which turns into a morning together. And long story short, this is it's essentially a giant con with between Lana and Guido, her pimp or manager, to essentially kind of grift him and get him to make them a lot of money by convincing him that the two of them had this connection and that he would eventually throw a big sex worker party at his house because she sees how expensive all the stuff there is, because it's his parents' place. It's in a really wealthy suburb of Chicago, and
it's around the corner from Cameron Fry from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
That's true. So the idea is to steal all of his stuff and kind of charge him to buy it all back.
Now, do we know, was she... I felt like it was kind of inconclusive whether or not she was in on it.
I mean, it felt like she had to be in on it to a certain extent. Like it seemed like she was in on it, but kind of was feeling like she didn't want to be, but because she seemed, or at least she was very convincing in that she cared for him. Yeah. But I think that ultimately all of this was, she was in on it to a certain extent.
She was in on it, but maybe she felt a little
regretfully
worse than she usually.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's basically it. And Joel certainly evolves as a more laid back person. He's also taking these business classes in the school, and all of this kind of goes hand in hand with the work that he's doing at school. And he's kind of like secretly becoming this business person by essentially becoming a pimp himself, under the radar, while everyone else at school is like doing these, fake business projects.
Widgets.
What's
a widget? Back to school.
That's right. So, yeah, I mean, what's interesting about this movie is that it does feel very John Hughesy. I mean, aside from it being set and like in the same area where all of his movies are essentially set, but it kind of like, when he's taking his parents to the airport and it's like his point of view and they're talking to him, like that feels very John Hughesy. The iconic scene when he's dancing by himself in his underwear, like it feels like it's a fun teen, like Ferris Bueller kind of moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it definitely has a Ferris Bueller vibe until it doesn't.
Until it doesn't. Very true. I mean, very early on, when he's talking about this dream that he has and, there's nudity, like right from the jump, it's pretty much letting you know, like, this isn't going to be your typical, teen comedy.
But you have to think, John, at that time, what was your typical teen comedy? It was Porky's.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It was Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which is a movie that I find slightly similar to Risky Business in that it has some pretty severe tonal shifts.
Yeah.
But Fast Times at Ridgemont High was
but not as severe as a movie
comedy.
like Roadhouse.
Oh, oh man, I've been referencing Roadhouse at my play rehearsals at school. For those new to the program, I am currently directing my own reboot of A Few Good Men, high school play, and there are times where I've described a character as that if they got any closer to you, they would rip out your throat, Roadhouse style.
Call you chicken dick.
I leave that part out.
So yeah, I mean, this movie does have a lot of really fun elements to it, and you kind of it's easy to get caught up in like the antics of this movie, but it definitely goes back and forth of being like this movie about struggle and coming of age. Also, as Tom Cruise has said, about capitalism.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely about capitalism, and it's definitely that 80s, just like materialism. I mean, even without Tom Cruise's character, you have the father who gets all weird about his graphic equalizer on his stereo system. He gets all pissed off about it, and he's the dad he doesn't come across as necessarily like abusive, but definitely like emotionally absent or cold.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And Joel is it's kind of hard. I think I struggle with the character of Joel because I'm not sure if he's supposed to be this awkward teen. Like, who is supposed to play Joel? Brian Backer. Brian Backer, who played Mark Ratner in Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Arnie in Police Academy 4 Citizens on Patrol.
Yep.
So Brian Backer was supposed to play Joel, and then I guess they had him, and then Tom Cruise auditioned, and they were like, "Oh, hey, Tom Cruise. Oh, it's that guy who was like the psychopath from Taps." And he's good.
Which, and I don't know if this is just because we're so familiar with Tom Cruise in Risky Business, but in a lot of ways it feels like it wouldn't be as believable if it were Brian Backer, because Tom Cruise, he certainly looks like somebody who Rebecca De Mornay would, and I know this is just a very like, I don't know, shallow perspective, but like
it's but it's very 80s, very superficial, very 80s.
Sure, yeah, but it's like if she was trying to make it seem like she really wanted to be with him, it'd be a harder sell with Brian Backer.
But it was like, I guess because you introduced this character with him telling this story, which is any of it real? How much of it is real? Like he's telling the story about walking in on like this girl that they go to school with, who's babysitting up the block, and like all of her clothes had gotten wet. And he's telling this story, and you think doesn't he even say it's a dream?
I think so.
But then he says it's real, so it's like misleading, and in that it also definitely plays much more like a dream than reality.
Because when he's saying like, as he's walking towards the shower, and like the closer he gets, the steam gets thicker, and even the visual of it, the bathroom itself gets like longer and longer. So
I confused, because was that the one with the babysitter?
That was where he goes into the neighbor's house, and he's trying to find people, and he walks into the bathroom, and there's this woman in the shower. Right.
Sorry, so I got that confused with when he tells the story about walking in and with the babysitter, the girl who, and he's like, and she said, "I'm in the mood," and he doesn't. And he
there's
walks away.
There's no visual component for that. I think he's just telling that story.
Yeah, he's just telling that story. But it's, first of all, it's set up very much like this like high school dream.
Yeah.
And who it kind of reminded me of American Pie.
Oh yeah.
It was these guys talking about sex, but I mean, aside from the one guy who like comes in and has sex in Joel's bedroom with his girlfriend, just like because he knows Joel's parents aren't home.
Glenn or something.
Glenn. Yeah. So other than Glenn, it's like you don't get the impression that these guys have had sex.
Right.
I mean, aside from the fact that Curtis Armstrong looks about 30,
Yeah.
I still think he's my favorite part of the film.
He's so good. I think he actually is like 27 or something when they filmed it.
Yeah. But it's like it's almost like there's always that kid in high school, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of who Curtis Armstrong plays. You know, that guy who just like he just doesn't seem to give a shit what the cool kids think.
Right. He is his own version of a cool kid, and he's smart. He's going to Princeton, I believe, or Harvard.
Oh, he's going to like Harvard, right?
He's going to Harvard,
he's going.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, it's like he doesn't need. He's like above everybody else.
Yeah.
So he kind of, and he's except you know what I had a problem with was when, like, after the I guess the first prostitute shows up. And Joel's calling him, and Joel's like, you made this phone call.
Right.
And he's just kind of like, sorry, I'm not going over there. I'm not helping you out.
Yeah.
And I felt, I was upset. I was upset with him.
Yeah. He's not the best friend. I mean,
He's not being a good friend.
No,
Bronson
he's not.
Pinchot is a much better friend.
Bronson Pinchot he's a good friend. And let's talk just a little bit about some of the people in this movie. So that's Bronson Pinchot's, I think, first movie. Later, of course, went on to Perfect Strangers and
Beverly Hills Cop.
Beverly Hills Cop 1 and 3 as Serge. The most interesting turn as an art gallery assistant to an arms dealer. Say what you will about Beverly Hills Cop 3, Serge is hysterical in it. Love it. And then, Curtis Armstrong, who is then in Revenge of the Nerds, and all of the rest of the Revenge of the Nerds movies, Moonlighting. He's the only person, when I lived in Los Angeles, he's the only person I ever saw who I got starstruck by. I saw him at like a farmer's market, and I was like, oh my God.
I get it.
It's Curtis Armstrong.
I get it. It's Booger.
Yeah. Well, also Better Off Dead.
Oh, yeah. Better Off Dead. One Crazy Summer. Like,
yeah. He just did so many amazing things in that era, and he was like such a fun part of all of these movies. And then this is also the first movie for Megan Mullally, who was one of the call girls, who you might remember from such movies as Anywhere But Here with Susan Sarandon, who was in Lorenzo's Oil, and also Will and Grace, and Children's Hospital and Party Down and all the other things that she's amazing in.
Parks and Rec, I think she's.
Yeah, Parks and Rec, Tammy too.
Yep, Tammy too. Oh man, she and Ron Offerman, so funny together.
Nick Offerman, jeez. Ron
Swanson, Nick Offerman. Yeah. All right. It's Monday night. It's already been a long week.
Yeah. She's one of the call girls at the end of the movie. And I'm using the term call girls because that's what they refer to them as in the movie. I know that I keep on also saying sex worker because, that's my 2019 brain.
Yeah. It's okay. It's all right.
And since we're talking about the difference between 1983 and 2019, the first evening that Tom Cruise has with Rebecca De Mornay sets him back $300, which today would cost about $775 with inflation.
Wow, you researched what the inflation?
Well, I also do a podcast about Leave It to Beaver. So whenever they talk about money, I always like to look up and see like what that would be now. We haven't released a new episode of that in a while, but we're just long overdue.
It's been some time. It's been some time. But and then we got to give a shout out to somebody else who is in the movie and who tends to steal scenes and gives memorable performances. And that would be Mr. Joseph Pantoliano, aka Joey Pants, who plays Guido the Killer Pimp, one of the best lines in the movie.
Yeah.
And you may remember Joe Pantoliano from appearing in The Fugitive with Tommy Lee Jones, who was in The Client with Susan Sarandon, who was in Lorenzo's Oil.
Yeah. Obviously, as we've mentioned before, Tom Cruise and Nick Nolte starred together in Tropic Thunder, but it's fun to see what else we can do.
Yeah, I'm sure there's others, but, you know, hey.
So, Dan, first of all, do you have any recollections of your first time seeing this movie?
I guess Risky Business is a movie all about first times, isn't it? That's the other thing.
Well,
is like
everybody has their first time seeing Risky Business if you've seen Risky Business.
But then again, that's another thing is it's like Tom Cruise, if that's like his first time and he's going all night with Rebecca, I guess.
Teenagers, man.
17. All right. So that might have been around the age I was when I first saw Risky Business. I don't know. I think Risky Business, honestly, was something I taped off HBO. I think it was one of those that I was probably in high school at the time, and I was like, oh, I've never seen this movie. It's on at 3 a.m. on HBO. Let me tape it. And I was expecting, because when I thought of Risky Business, I just thought of, you know, the old time rock and roll.
Yeah.
And all that. I mean, hell, that was how they started Alf. That was how the series started.
That's right.
Was Alf doing his Risky Business bit.
It's been parodied in everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then you see this movie and there's a train sex scene that's really strange and like with that creepy dude. And then there's and like a score by Vangelis, composers
Tangerine Dream.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Was it Tangerine Dream? Tangerine Dream.
I believe so.
Not Vangelis. It was Tangerine Dream. Sorry. So you've got this like weird like synths like weird score by Tangerine Dream,
which totally works.
But it also had like, if you listen to the songs, like the actual pop songs that they got, like Bruce Springsteen, who I think you don't often find him on soundtracks where he didn't like write a song for the movie, like Dead Man Walking or The Wrestler.
Well, at this era, he wasn't quite at that point.
Born in the USA was a year from coming out. He was.
Yeah, I mean, he was really big, but he wasn't like writing songs specifically for movies yet.
Yeah, no. That's true. But I'm just saying it was.
You've also got In the Air Tonight, famously.
Yes, In the Air Tonight, which I know most people remember that from Miami Vice, but.
Well, I guess I'm not most people.
I forgot it was in this movie. I always think like, oh yeah, that was in like they used that in Miami Vice. There was that I don't know, that one episode of Miami Vice.
Cool.
For some reason, that's what I think of. I'll have to double check that. I hope I'm right about that.
So, Dan, what would you do with Risky Business now?
You know, John, it's a tough question.
It's the purpose of this podcast.
Yes, no, I know, but sometimes it's an easier, like there's some movies that we talk about where it's kind of like there are avenues that make sense. Whereas for Risky Business, it's like, I don't necessarily see a sequel. I don't see the purpose for a remake. And I don't see like what would a prequel be like? How did Guido get into pimpin'? I was kind of stuck on where to go with this. You know, it's kind of an odd little film, and it's got this really kind of weird, inconsistent tone that goes back and forth from like a John Hughes style comedy to like this quasi drama with a pimp. Yeah. And like hookers, and granted, I mean, it is kind of a sanitized vision of all that. Like if you were to remake it, we know too much nowadays. Like we know from like documentaries and TV and the internet, like we know too much. We know that like we know that it is like serious business, and that, you know, I just feel like we know too much about the business of sex work, sex trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we know, like pimps are. I mean, I don't speak from experience, but like I feel like if I had a pimp who is after me, I would be terrified.
Yeah.
And I know it's like, maybe it's a sign of the times, and it's a statement that Joel just kind of like, all right, well, here's money. I've got a bond in the
Right.
bank. Here's money. So yeah, I honestly, I think just like leave it.
Right, but we're talking like Guido's got a gun to your head and is saying, do something with risky business.
I'm like, I don't even think a musical version of this would be good.
You're correct. It would not be.
I mean, for like risky business, I guess I guess a remake, like a very loose remake, kind of. I mean, in the vein of what we talked about with Rain Man, kind of taking the premise, but giving it a more modern, realistic.
Right. Well, something also to remember is that there are sex workers who like being sex workers. Yes, there are a lot of people who are doing it either against their will or as a last resort, and that's no good business. So, and that's something that could be discussed in it, you know, in some of the scenes where like Joel and Lana are just having chit chat, you know.
Which there are quite a few. I mean, they do.
They
talk.
they connect with each other.
They do. And I mean, it's like, I don't mean to be like disrespectful to sex workers. I'm just saying, like, risky business in 2019, like as a new thing, as a product of 2019.
I'm not saying it would be a good idea to revive this property, but what I am saying is that,
I mean, maybe remake it as a thriller. Remake it
Yeah.
as a thriller.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I'm saying is like there's much more that we all know about this industry, and it's, you know, changed in a lot of ways, which brings me to my idea, which actually is a sequel. And I'm not saying this is a good idea. I'm just saying it's an idea. So at this point, Joel has gone to Princeton. He has become a successful business person. You know, there's the moment when he's talking with his friends, and it's all just kind of like, you know, do you want to do this to like put something out there in the world and like do something good, or do you just want to make money? And they're all like, make money, make money, make money. So I think that for him, it's a lot of like, you know, he wants to do something meaningful, but that's not the world that he's living in. So I think that he's gone to Princeton. He's fit into that groove, but there's still this part of him in like somewhere deep inside that had this experience when he was a teenager. Cut to, it's 2019. He has a daughter who is in college, perhaps also at Princeton. As we know, Tom Cruise is maybe a little old for a college-aged child, but this is Tom Cruise, who looks like he could pass for 40. So he's got a college-aged daughter, and as he discovers that in order to raise money, she has taken on work as a cam girl. Very 2019 business.
Okay.
And he's kind of going through the struggle with, you know, his being a father and his past self, and, you know, kind of getting into that world and understanding these people and getting in close with them. And as he kind of starts to come to terms with things, he discovers that she became a cam girl due to the influence of a gentleman named Guido. And that's when he knows this is very risky business. And he's got to.
Is that what it would be called? Is very risky business?
Yeah, it's just called risky business.
It's just
30 years later, 35 years later, whatever.
I don't know. I can kind of see it in the font, very riskier business.
And you know what? Tom Cruise does some running. He chases
in the rain?
Guido on foot. He can run in the rain. He rode his bike. Well, no, he didn't ride his bike in the rain. It wasn't raining, but he rode a bike and got very sweaty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, okay, yeah.
Oh, and casting for his daughter, Zoe Deutsch. I just think that she's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Why not?
I was like, what actresses do I know what female actresses do I know who are
Did you
around
Google
that
female
age?
actresses?
No, I didn't. But then I was like, oh, Zoe Deutsch, she's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she's on the Politician with
Oh, okay.
and I did not realize that she is the daughter of Leah Thompson.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Leah Thompson and Howard Deutsch, the director. I think I'm pronouncing his name right.
Yeah. Oh
But-
my God. I did not put that together.
Oh, he directed Pretty in Pink. That's right. Now, Pretty in Pink and Some Kind of Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
The Replacements.
Some Kind of
for a moment,
Wonderful.
I was-
Isn't that with Tom Cruise? Isn't he
No.
in that? I thought that he
is
was in
Eric-
that.
Eric
Is that Eric Stoltz?
Eric Stoltz, who starred with Tom Cruise in Jerry Maguire.
That's
So
Wait,
Howard
Eric
Deutsch.
Stoltz is
he
in
did-
Jerry Maguire?
He has a cameo in the
Oh, he has a
there's the
cameo.
party celebrating Jerry Maguire, and he's like
Celebrating the release
He's-
of the movie Jerry Maguire.
they are celebrating the release of the movie Jerry Maguire. They're at the opening of Jerry Maguire's, and Eric Stoltz was there. Yeah, why not?
Cool.
He was working there. No,
He was
actually,
the
I
cater
really,
waiter.
So, and Howard Deutsch also, he directed a movie called Article 99, which, have you ever seen that?
No.
It's been a long time, but I remember like seeing that when I was younger, and it's Ray Liotta and Kiefer Sutherland. And I want to say they're doctors at a hospital. Is it during Vietnam? I think during the Vietnam War. I don't know. It was I remember really liking it though. So, and Howard Deutsch directed that, father of Zoe Deutsch.
Super interesting.
Yeah, there we go.
Talented family.
Really, indeed. Yes.
What was the movie that Leah Thompson did with Tom Cruise? I know she.
Oh, Leah Thompson. Sorry. So Leah Thompson was in she was in Some Kind of Wonderful. So Leah Thompson and Tom Cruise.
Weren't they in something together?
All the Right Moves.
Maybe that was it.
With Craig T. Nelson.
Coach is Craig T. Nelson.
Coach
All
is
the Right
Craig T.
Moves. Tom Cruise, Craig T. Nelson, Leah Thompson.
Oh yeah, okay.
There we
Never
go.
seen that one.
Well, you're not
that
going to.
was released. That was released in 1983. Oh, almost. It was October 21st, 1983. So, okay.
About to celebrate an anniversary.
All the Right Moves.
So,
Yeah,
Dan,
never saw.
the other thing is that, and this is all in like all the trivia stuff for this, but Curtis Armstrong and Bronson Pinchot, had talked about their experiences working with Tom Cruise, and seems like wasn't a real fun guy to be around if you were a dude working on a movie with him.
Not according to Bronson Pinchot.
Yeah, very homophobic. Called him very dull.
Like, what was the quote that you kept seeing? Like, I'd go get some ice cream. I'll go get some ice cream with you as long as there aren't any gay people in there.
Yeah, something like that. It was like really, really bizarre. Like, he's definitely trying to prove something to nobody. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know.
And I think it was Curtis Armstrong in his book Revenge of the Nerd had said something about how he would like invite Tom Cruise to go out with them after shooting for a day or whatever, and he'd be like, oh no, I'm gonna go back to my hotel and do X, Y, and Z. And I guess at the time he was a Christian Scientist. Is that what you call someone who practices Christian Science?
I guess so. I don't know if that makes you a Christian Scientist.
Yeah,
I think you have to go to you have to get a master's in Christian Science. Yeah, PhD.
So he would go back and say he was going to just read the Bible, but then Curtis Armstrong would go back and see that he had a line of girls outside of his room, and one would come out and then the next would come in, and it's like,
I read this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what is this guy up to? I mean, he's at the beginning of stardom. He's starring in this movie, but he was in The Outsiders, he was in Taps, he was somebody that people certainly knew about. Losing It had just come out. I guess that probably wouldn't have come out by the time this was being made, but anyway, really interesting. And you hear a lot of stories now about people who have had encounters with Tom Cruise and only say super nice things about him, and say that he's very thoughtful, and he sends you a birthday cake every year on your birthday, and he does all these things for the people that he works with and stuff. So it seems like Scientology did him good.
Well, he's in aside from Scientology, he's also in a much different place now than he was.
Sure.
I mean,
early
imagine
80s movie star, and he's still a child, basically.
Just becoming a movie star, and really starting to learn what all that is about. I mean, you have a line of women waiting to read the Bible with you.
Yeah.
So, you
need someone else. You need someone else to go back and forth with to run the lines.
Yeah.
You can't do them all yourself.
The lines in the Bible.
The lines in the Bible.
Yeah.
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 It's you be Esther this time, and
I'll be Ahasuerus. Did I get that right?
Sure.
Don't be Haman.
Oh, no,
I played Haman once.
Did you really?
Haman. I played Haman in the Purim Spiel one year at Emmanuel.
The Purim Spiel.
Yeah. It's on my resume.
Hey, speaking of things that are very specific to our hyper local upbringing, this is our 35th episode, and our local TV channel growing up was TV35. Dan, did you have much experience with TV35 growing up?
I guess I had limited experience with TV35. I mean, I was definitely on there a few times. They put the parades on there.
You were the senior class president, so I bet that you had some sort of...
This wasn't... No, it's not like TV35 was Fox News. It's not like I had no connection to any TV networks.
I'm not saying that you did press conferences or anything like that. I'm just saying, you were a person that...
I got all my talking points from TV35. I'd watch, Total Sports with Ed Toy and then just repeat the talking points. I think that was the only show. That was the only show on TV35. Otherwise, it was the town hall, town meetings. I want to say a town hall, but it wasn't that. Just the meetings, whatever meetings. They showed the parades and school concerts,
high school graduation.
They show high school graduation was on a summer of 1995. Any time of day you could turn.
I
that on.
also know that they showed the high school football games because I used to be a camera person for those.
Oh, right.
Because I briefly
Yes.
volunteered there as a camera operator.
So tell us about your experience with TV35. You have some real experience there.
Let me tell you, I really wish that I had the foresight to know that like it would be such a cool thing to like make crazy public access television shows.
Yeah.
I know, because like
Hindsight.
honestly, the set that they had there, so the TV35 station was, or maybe still is, in like the basement of the municipal building,
The police station.
the police station. So yeah, it's just kind of an afterthought. And yeah, it's very Between Two Fernsey, the like set that
Yes.
they have there.
Yes, that
Yeah.
was exactly
It's
my
got like a
thought.
curtain behind it, and I'm sure they have a plastic fern or two. Yeah, real low budge, and I'd be surprised if they upped that budge at all.
I'd be disappointed.
But yeah, I remember like the gigantic cameras with all the controls on the like handles and everything like that. Like, you know, they were given money to get the place set up, but I don't think that they ever upgraded anything. I'm sure that now they've got, you know, cheaper but better cameras. But
John,
what are you looking up right now?
Well, hold on a second. That's the this video just started playing, but it's Cranford's TV35 Management Weather Central. And here, hold on. You can't see this yet. So I'm going to show you the picture and I want you to guess the year.
I can't see it very clearly, but my gut says 2019.
Oh, 2017.
2017.
I thought you were going to guess like 93.
It also looks like it could be 93, like easily. Yeah, but like
yeah.
I was there around, I don't know, 98, 99 doing stuff. Probably.
Did I just all of a sudden you probably weren't there for this, but like I want to know, did like TV35 run like a Y2K?
No, not that I recall.
Like TV35 is going to be on the air until the Y2K bug shuts us down.
Yeah, no, there certainly wasn't anything like that, at least that I can recall. And I'm pretty sure I'd recall something like that. But yeah, that was certainly a bizarre experience. And I almost wish that I could still work at like a small town local TV station, like a U62.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's a TV35. It had that, the offices or like the little studio, the little editing suite definitely had that U62
Yeah.
feel.
We're referring
from
to
it.
UHF, by the way. So yeah, I mean, and this is kind of the situation where it's like, I bet that if I said to them like, hey, can I have my own show? They'd be like, yeah, why not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It-
In
it- I
between
mean,
episodes of Wheel of Fish and Bowling for Burgers.
Bowling for Burgers and Amazing Pets.
Yeah.
Wonderful movie.
so-
We'll talk about it another time.
So Dan, do you want to
Yeah,
tell everyone
John.
what we're going to be talking about on the next episode?
So our next episode is going to take us a couple of years into the future, past Risky Business, and into Ridley Scott's 1985 fantasy epic Legend,
Yeah.
starring Tom Cruise, Mia Sara of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Tim Curry.
Tim Curry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, really excited.
Excited to check that one out. It's been a while.
Yeah. We kind of, before we started recording, we're going back and forth about this one and another one. And we both were just like, yeah, Legend, you know, we're right around Halloween time. It's got that kind of vibe to it.
Well, yeah, I think it fits well, and I'm excited to get another look at it. It's like I mean, I'm pretty sure it's been since maybe the late 80s, early 90s that I've seen it.
Me too, probably.
So excited to get another look at it, and excited to talk about it with you, John.
Yeah, likewise. All right, Dan, you have a good journey.
Hey, you have a good journey.